And we're going to get right into it with my first question for you, which is also something I have not yet done on this show, which is let's do a little role play. Here's what I want to do. I want you to pretend that you have a newsletter that shares advice for self-published authors, right? You've got a few thousand subscribers. You're not really monetizing it directly through brands or partnerships or sponsorships or anything like that, but you want to do that. You want to get sponsors. So the first part of my question is, what types of brands would you reach out to if you have an audience of a few thousand self-published authors?
All right. So, man, you probably didn't know this, and this is maybe cheating a little bit, but I have actually coached a creator who has an audience like that. So I already have a little bit in my head about stuff like that. So, okay, so let's take a step back real quickly and discuss how most folks would approach this, right? Most creators who would have an audience like that would think, okay, I need to go out and find brands or software tools or something like that that help authors write books. Right? Like that's what most people think about. I need to find a partner that's just like a shoe-in, that's like a very obvious like integration for my audience, right? That most people think about. And this is where I think a lot of creators get very frustrated, especially if they have a very concentrated niche, because they're like, oh, who the heck is going to sponsor my underwater basket weaving channel? Like there's no brands unless it's like the nylon that they use to make the baskets or something. And so the first piece of advice that I can give around this idea is you actually need to focus on the psychographics of your audience rather than the demographics or rather than the content vertical itself. And so what psychographics are literally the psychological characteristics of your audience. So to this example of, people who are helping self-published authors, let's talk about what type of person that is. Maybe, a self-published author, they probably have a 9-to-5 still. They're doing this. This is their side hustle, is like writing for fun, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever, fantasy, whatever it is. How are you going to know the types of people they are? Where are they consuming their content? Are they in line at Starbucks reading your newsletter for 2 minutes in line? Are they sitting down every Sunday morning and reading your newsletter top to bottom? How are they interacting? What types of jobs do they have? Like these are the types of it, like what's their household income? If you feel comfortable asking stuff like that, right? And so it literally comes down to just asking them, sending a survey, a Google Form survey, a type form. Hey, reply to this email. It doesn't need to be complicated, right? But getting some sort of qualitative understanding of what your audience, what's keeping them up at night? What are their problems, right? And so once you start to realize, oh, okay, maybe like these folks, they are doing this as a side hustle, and maybe they are starting to make some royalties from self-publishing online through Amazon KDP or something like that. Maybe an app like FreshBooks might be helpful to help them stop commingling their personal funds and their business funds, the money that they're starting to make from being a self-published author. Maybe that's a partnership that would really make sense for the people who follow my newsletter. So you can see how when you start to really think of it from an audience first perspective, you can start to think about other types of creative partners that you can find.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think also, and this is something that I've even found myself, is I'm always having ideas for like, oh, there's an audience for this, or I could do this, or I could do that. And then a lot of times I think you start to go, well, but how would I monetize it? And you go, oh, but that niche there's not money in that niche in terms of like an advertiser sponsor part, right? Who really wants to reach those people? But I think that's a great point of sort of broadening it out, that like your sponsors and the brands you approach don't have to be topic specific. It's what else is that audience looking to solve? And again, FreshBooks not an obvious choice, but it completely makes sense when you think about it. So let's take this example and go a step deeper, right? And we can use FreshBooks as an example or another brand. So let's say that you were that person. You have that audience of a few thousand self-published authors. You've thought about the psychographics. You've decided, okay, I want to reach out to FreshBooks or X, Y, and Z brand. Let's, pretend I'm the head of marketing at one of those brands and give me the pitch, right? So, because I would imagine on the flip side, maybe the brand is not, the head of marketing at a FreshBooks or whatever is not thinking, hey, we got to get the self-published author market. Right?
100%.
So
yeah.
I assume you have to sort of spin it the other way. So, put yourself in that place and sort of pitch me, basically.
Okay, so I'm going to actually take another slight detour here, because I'm going to split hairs on a statement that you made that is not accurate, which is that I am not going to pitch the head of marketing. Okay. Because at a company like FreshBooks or a larger, medium to, even Fortune 500 company, let's say, the head of marketing has absolutely nothing to do with paid partnerships.
Okay.
That is, they have subordinates for that, or they have delegated that to their advertising agency. So the first order of business is you need to figure out who the heck you're sending this pitch to. Because I find that is oftentimes what the hang up is for a lot of creators. Maybe they do pitch FreshBooks. They find the press email on FreshBooks website, or they DM FreshBooks on Instagram. They're like, we'd love to partner with you, blah, blah, blah. And then they get ghosted and they're like, cold pitching doesn't work. It's like 100% false.
That's when they send a raven, right? And that's how most of these deals are done.
Exactly, right? And so that's the first order of business is like understanding that not all titles are made equal at different organizations. An easy hack here is literally go to the company's LinkedIn page, and right underneath their company profile, you can click on how many employees they have. It says, see all 200 employees that work at this organization. You literally click through and you scroll through pages of like, start understanding the marketing hierarchy of their team. And so, maybe you have a head of marketing. Maybe you have, a lot of people think, oh, the social media manager, that's who I should talk to. Honestly, most of the time, social media manager also does not have anything to do with it. They're just handling community engagement, responding to people on Instagram or social media, Twitter, whatever it is, answering customer service issues, whatever. But you're looking probably more for the partnerships manager, or you know what? Most brands now, luckily for you, have an influencer marketing manager. A lot of them. It's so much easier to figure out who to reach out to now than it was 10 years ago when my wife and I first started doing this. And so let's just assume, okay, we found the partnerships manager's information. Awesome. That's great. We're good to start crafting our pitch now. And so to your point here, it's not directly obvious oftentimes, why a company like that would want to partner with a self-published author's newsletter. And so I have this pitching methodology that I teach in my course called the ROPE method. Okay. And it's an acronym. So ROPE stands for your pitch has to be relevant to a campaign that they've either ran in the past or are running right now. Okay. O stands for organic, meaning that you can tie your pitch back to organic content or work that you've already published. Okay. P stands for proof. So you can show how this partnership, how you have helped other brands achieve results, and you're tying that line in your pitch, right? And E stands for easy to execute. When the brand says, yeah, sure, tell me more, let's do this. And so how this pitch could look, let's pull this thread with FreshBooks, let's say. Okay. So your pitch says something as follows. It does, by the way, the subject is not collaboration ? It's like instant delete, right? They don't know who you are. They don't care, delete, right? And so, for example, let's say that we were going on, actually, let's make this super tactical right now. I'm just going to should we do this? I just made up FreshBooks, but let's actually do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up FreshBooks Instagram. I literally just did this right now on my other screen. Okay. And what I'm going to do is time of recording of this podcast right now, it's January 11th. So let's say we want to pitch FreshBooks. We are not going to pitch them new year, new you, which is what a lot of people would think they would do right now. These are the campaigns they're running now. They've already inked those campaigns. Those
that budget is spent.
That budget is allocated. It's been allocated for several months for a brand the size of FreshBooks, probably. Right. And so you're probably going to want to pitch tax time. That's probably, or Q2 campaigns, last minute people who are trying to balance their books or reconcile stuff. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back on FreshBooks Instagram back to last March. So March of 2022. Okay. So I'm scrolling. Okay. So here. Okay. So this is a post right now. Okay. Here we go. Look at this. I did not plan this. I swear to God. I'm looking at a post right now from February 17th of 2022. That is it says U.S. tax checklist for part-time freelancers and solopreneurs. Okay. So they are running content and running a campaign where they're giving you a checklist for part-time freelancers. Doesn't this sound like part-time authors? Similar, right? And so your pitch to them is checklist for part-time freelancers in 2023 ? That's the subject, right? And so in your pitch, you say, hey, I saw that last February, FreshBooks was, offering this checklist to part-time freelancers and solopreneurs. I have actually been talking about in my newsletter all around why it's so important for part-time authors to start, starting to be more professional about managing their finances and, filing taxes separately, all this stuff. And then you link the archive of that news like blast, right?
Yep.
In the archive of your newsletter. All right. So that's the O in the rope method, right? It's organic, right? So that you have credibility around this topic. And you said, I would love to do the following. I would love to, you basically say, are you going to be doing this again this year? I would love to help, promote this checklist to my audience. I think it's going to be super helpful. I can do, 4 newsletter blasts for the month of February. I'll give you the rights to repurpose this content on the FreshBooks blog or on social media, potentially. If you want to run paid advertising with, with something that I create as well. I also have this podcast where I could talk about it as well, right? So you make the pitch, right? You say, here's what I'm going to do. Are you free at Thursday? Here's how I've helped QuickBooks also. No, maybe not QuickBooks, but here's how I've helped. Here's how I've helped, some other brand that's relevant to the category achieve results. Happy to share info on how that performed as well. Are you free on Thursday at 10 a.m. to talk about it?
Let me ask you real quick. First of all, that is fantastic. But let me ask you real quick on that. How specific would you get in the pitch in terms of this is specifically what I would do for you versus sort of, I've got a variety of things we could talk about X, Y, and Z, in that initial outreach? How specific do you get?
Extremely specific, because you need to give them something to react to. Because if you just say, "Oh, I'd love to partner,"
I've got this audience,
let's figure out the synergy. Yeah, they're thinking, "Oh my God, more work for me. I have to now go dig into this person's content, figure out on top of all the other things I'm doing, I now have to figure out a way to collaborate." No, you tell them you are the expert, and you're saying, "This is how I can help you achieve your business objectives." FreshBooks, you are trying to get this checklist into the hands of part-time freelancers and solopreneurs. Guess what? I can help you do that in the following way. So the chances of them actually saying, sure, sounds good, sign, where do I sign? Without any modifications or changes is very unlikely. But that's not the point. The point is that you've given them something and they allow them to say, oh, well, you know what? We're not actually doing that right now. We're not doing something on a newsletter, but I would love to have you write a blog post, a guest post or whatever. And we could pay you for that. So you give them the opening to suggest something else.
Do you include a price point in there or no? Just be specific about what you give them and then get to a conversation and figure out price down the road.
Absolutely. The priority is getting them on a call, right? Because once you get them on a call, then you can be a detective. You can start asking them questions. You can be very interested in their business. Oh, that's so, you've never targeted the author niche. I actually think that's a huge opportunity for you. Here's the reason. You're very clear that there will be an investment. Right. To partner with you, of course, but you never want to lead with that, because how do you know that they won't be willing to pay you 20 grand for some other type of partnership where, hey, come to our conference and give a keynote? You have to give them the opportunity by having that conversation.
That was all fantastic and I'm sure super helpful. And one thing I want to point out, which I'm sure, people listening to this and watching this have picked up on, but I just want to point it out because I think it's one of the through lines for me in both the advice that I give and when I talk to other experts is that, with everything, not just sponsorships, but people that are successful in this sort of creative entrepreneur space are way more strategic than the average person realizes. And I think what really comes out in your answer and what you just said is how strategic you are about every step of the process that you just laid out. You're not winging it. You're doing research. You're going back and thinking about, well, what did they do last year? It's not just, hey, I have this audience. That brand might be a good fit. Let's do something together. It is hyper strategic. And I think, I'm not surprised, but I think it's a perfect example of one of the through lines that I think lots of people miss, where they don't realize how strategic they have to be with everything. And certainly that extends to sponsorship. So thank you for that. And as the partnerships manager at FreshBooks, I'm sold.
Think about, just again, put yourself in that person's shoes. They're getting pitches all day long that are terrible, right? It's just oh, I'd love to collaborate, or I'm not, I'm this 100,000 on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. It's because believe me, I ran an agency, an influencer agency for 7 years, and I have been on the receiving end of lots and lots of really terrible pitches. Okay. And so I understand this is how the majority of people do it. And so if you put even in an iota of effort, of research into understanding what is going on in the brand's world, you're going to instantly differentiate yourself. Believe me. And so, because again, a lot of creators, they come at it from a very me perspective, virtually so many pitches I've seen. Oh, my name is Justin. I have 100,000 followers on YouTube. I get this many views per video. Here's my demographics. Here's blah, 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 blah. And the brand's I don't care. Delete. They don't know you. They don't care. I'm sorry. I'm kind of tough love about this kind of stuff. But honestly, it's true. They do not care. You have to lead with what is in it for them. How can you help them accomplish their business objectives? Because you better believe they have money allocated to their own initiatives, not to pay random people that reach out to them. So it's your job to kind of tie those, make that through that thread to say, hey, give me 20 grand. I can help you do this thing that it seems like you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I think, also right along those lines, making it easy for people is a huge competitive advantage, because you're right. In a lot of cases, they have budget allocated. They have to spend this budget. They're trying to figure out what to do. And it's like, if you can make it easier than the next person, lots of people have a big audience like you have. If you can make it easier than the next guy or the next woman, you're more likely to get that money. So that was great.